A fighting fury, we're from Tigerland. In any weather you will see us with a grin, risking head and skin. If we're behind, then never mind, we'll fight and win, for we're from Tigerland. We never weaken till the final siren's gone.
Good evening, Tigercast fans. Welcome to a very special draft edition. We've got a big show on tonight, and there's less than 4 weeks till the draft, which is huge. It's always a very fun and exciting time of the year. And we've got a couple of very special guests joining us tonight, so make sure you give them some love. First up, Dylan Alexander from True Footy and Dylan Alexander Follows Draft. Welcome, mate. How's it going?
Good to be here, mate. Good to be here. It's my time of the year, draft time, so I've come out of the woodwork and starting to be on all the shows and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, looking forward to tonight, going over some Richmond stuff, but also having a good chat with Xavier.
Yeah, doing the media rounds. Now, I don't want to spoil what's on the list that you had written, but you had a discard list, and there's one player in there that I take exception to being in there, which I haven't told you about yet. But
did you see that? Did you?
I did. Yeah. Well, the Google sheet updated, so I was seeing what else was in there, and I had a look. But yeah, I'm sure we will get to that down the track. But in the shorter term, we are joined by Xavier Taylor from the Eastern Rangers. Wears the number 22, coming fresh off a grand final and a BOG performance. Welcome, Xavier, and congratulations on the grand final win. Super effort.
No, thanks. It was a good couple of days, and thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
That was a good season, really, more than just a couple of days. I guess firstly as well, to those watching, Xavier's actually also a mad Tiger fan as well, so make sure we definitely show him some love. Loves the Tigers. Talk us through the season with the Rangers and making it through to the grand final. Like, how early on in the season did you, as a group or even as an individual, realise that you're the real deal and you're a chance to go the whole way? Because it just seems like a really special side with the way you play and the way you all just got the job done in such an efficient manner.
Definitely a big Tigers fan before. But kind of realised a bit early on that we had a bit of a special group, like playing even interleague with like more than half the boys, and we were all super connected, and kind of at the start of the season, even pre-season, just kind of set that out to be the goal. That as much as individually we wanted to perform and like have kids drafted, but we wanted to also like just get that final end goal, which we got, which was good, and it was awesome.
One thing I've always wanted to know, like obviously when you're playing at coach level, it must be really interesting to find the balance between team and individual game, because I mean ultimately all of you guys and girls are playing to get drafted, right? That is the end game, but you do want to have that team success along the way. So I suppose, how do you cope with it, or how do the coaches direct you on? I'm guessing the message is always team first, team first. And I guess in some way, if you do team first, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like definitely, like it's a league to get drafted, and like that's majority of people's goals. But like always, coaches and like LJ, Danny, backline coach, my backline coach is always team first. And when everyone's playing as a team, like you're playing your best footy, and that's what I've felt at least. When I'm up and going and playing team footy, I just thrive on that as well. So I think everyone kind of went on that, and yeah, it showed. I think that we're just a team in the end, and that's why we got the win.
Before I throw you over to Dill, your grand final, 25 disposals, 15 marks, dominant display, best on ground. You were just in the zone, just marking everything. How does it feel being out on the ground when you're just in that type of zone, in that hot streak? And everything you touch is sort of turning to gold, essentially.
It was just a bit of a lucky day, I think. I think it's like teammates as well help with that. Just knowing that I've got we're a very tight back six, like very tight team. But at my back six, just knowing that I could come off my man when I needed to, and they'd cover me, and just that sort of stuff. Just like having my teammates trust to be able to do that sort of stuff, and the coaches trusting me to be able to play my game, and yeah, it was just a good day.
I was just going to come in, Zabe, and ask you about your leadership. It's something that I've noticed watching you across the season. I guess amongst this draft crop, for me, earlier in the season, you weren't one that was right there on everybody's lips. So you've sort of grown into the season a little bit, and your stature's kind of gone up into that top 10. But I think one of your standout traits is that leadership. Is that something that you've kind of always had in your football, or is it something that sort of, I don't know, you've grown into in maybe the last 12 months as you've sort of got confidence as a player and you've grown into your body and stuff like that?
Definitely. I think a bit of both. Always kind of had it, and always thrived on it and tried to bring it into my game. something that I value a lot, and I think it's important. But I think it's like if you watch from round one to the grand final, I think I just built in confidence every game and kind of showed on the ground and that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, it sort of felt like across that whole Eastern Rangers team, there's a lot of you that really started to peak towards the end of the season. Yourself, you got Sullivan, Roby, Lockie Doveston as well, but there were a number of others where everybody just seemed to get better and better as the season went on. Do you think that was sort of down to that connectivity that you had?
Yeah, 100%. Like this, you could name 10 other blokes, but we're just so connected, and we just really worked every week to get into that end goal, and put the work in, and it happened. So.
And what about where was the beginning of your football journey? Obviously playing for Eastern Rangers now, but are you able to take us back a little bit? Where did you play your junior football? Position-wise, were you always a defender? How did your footy sort of evolve to then get recognised to get into the Eastern program?
I started my footy journey at East Ringwood Juniors. Mum and Dad both played there, and I played all my juniors there, and I love it. It's pretty important to me, East Ringwood, and I'm always down there whenever I can. I haven't played there for a couple of years, but I enjoy getting down there all the time. And I started as a defender because Dad was a defender, and then I grew pretty early during just before those COVID years, and then I kind of got thrown in like full forward, ruck, bit of mid, just a bit everywhere, which has been, I think, important as well to kind of adapt to different positions and that versatility as well. But then getting into the interlegs and that kind of went down back again and just been stuck there ever since. So.
What do you see yourself as long term, Zave? Because you said there you've sort of always been a defender, but I suppose looking at your height and stuff like that, you're slightly undersized as like a key position defender, but you stand out with some of your other traits. You're very offensive. You can run with the ball. Your agility was great at the combine. Do you sort of see maybe long term you could play some different positions, maybe, get up on a wing, play forward of the ball, but also even go into the midfield at some point with your athleticism?
100%. I asked LJ a few times this year to throw me up the ground a bit, and it didn't really happen, unfortunately. But definitely feel like I could, with a bit of training and that sort of stuff, could definitely get higher up the ground. Use my athleticism and power through the midfield would be awesome at some point in my career.
If there was one thing that was holding you back from doing that, what would it be? Would it be sort of endurance and stuff like that, or would it be more just the craft of playing on ball, knowing where to be, and those sorts of things?
Definitely. Like you got to have a big tank, and I feel like we could probably do it with a bit of training, with the craft as well, but a bit of confidence as well. Like I said before, I think from my first game to my last game, you could tell I was starting to take it on a bit more every game, and I think it's only going to go up from this year, and like next year will be even better, and then next year, etc.
You mentioned the raft of positions you play as a junior. I know you sort of been pigeonholed in defence ever since, but was there one that you enjoyed more than the other along your journey?
I love playing mid at local, kind of just roaming around and doing what you wanted a little bit.
For anyone watching, he loves playing mid.
Love playing mid. I was happy anywhere, wherever Dad wanted to throw me when he was coaching me. And forward. The only position I really have never played is the wing, so wouldn't mind getting thrown on the wing for a bit. It would be good to learn and play.
I can actually imagine you as a winger, mate, just roaming, taking marks, pushing back. Be great, I reckon.
Trainer this year.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny because that's where all supporters are kind of viewing that you could play as a secondary role. So it's interesting to hear that that's the actual position you haven't actually played yet. I'm with you, Dill, with the intercept marking and the offensive traits. I can definitely see a wing spot happening.
What player, Zave, would you say that I've got to see a few questions coming through in the comments here about sort of players that you model your game off, someone that you think you're similar to, or just maybe someone that you just sort of idolise in the AFL currently?
Like I said before, massive Tigers fan, so I'm always watching Tigers games and love Floston. I think everyone knows how good he is as a defender, and he's intercepting that. I just love how his competitiveness and how tough he is at the footy, and he hates losing one-on-ones, and it's something I try to throw myself on as well. So, yeah.
Do you think he deserves to be an All-Australian? That's a loaded question.
Could talk about that for hours, but yeah, 100%. 100%.
Pretty much along with every other Richmond fan, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly right. So you obviously had the sometimes not so fun task playing on some of the best forwards in the Coates League, both tall and small. I think that's been the beauty of the way you play. You can take on the smaller guys as well, which not a lot of defenders can do. Who were some of the tougher forwards you had to come up against this year at Coates level?
There's a few at Coates level that are pretty hard. Like I played on Floyd Burmeister, I think maybe 2 or 3 times over the 2 years I played Easton, and yeah, he's a super tough opponent. Like great athlete, big bodied as well, can get up the ground as well. So he kind of does a bit of everything, which is a bit hard to kind of combat. Yeah, there's definitely a few that I can't think of, but he was probably one of the main ones that caused me a bit of trouble.
Do you prefer to play on someone that's you've got a height advantage on and you can sort of get them aerially, or would you prefer to play on someone that is a bit more athletic and you can sort of run with them and beat them maybe physically? Do you have sort of a preference there? And maybe even you prefer to play on like a bigger body and you can sort of get them athletically as well?
Yeah, not too phased. I've kind of find it a bit easier playing on the bigger, dokier forwards. Can kind of use my athleticism to go with them in the air, and once it gets to the ground, it's easy picking. So yeah.
Has that been something that you've had to develop and learn about in terms of when to be really offensive and setting up plays, or was it something that came to you naturally? Was it coached into you? Because it's a really important part of the game for defenders now to be able to flick that switch and start driving attacks, which you do so well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like I've worked on it a lot, and like from even my bottom age year, I was just that lockdown defender, and I'd win the ball, and that's all I could do. But now I can kind of win it and start the offense off my own boot, which is something I've like done a lot of work on, and I'm not fully there yet. But yeah, I've done a lot of training with it, and some of it's natural, but yeah, done a lot of work on it, and still got a fair way to go with it though.
I wanted to ask you, mate, about the national championships. You got to play with some of the best players from in the Vic Metro area there, obviously. Who were some of the guys that you sort of really enjoyed playing with there, whether it was someone in the back half of the ground that you sort of with, or even someone that you played against at the champs, just that sort of experience that you got to have playing against the best players in the country?
Yeah, I love that. The 4 games we got to play and 3 travelling. Yeah, it was a great experience and great bunch of boys, and got pretty close with probably Kai Fincher and Max Kondagianis playing in the back line with those two, and yeah, they were great for me, and learned some stuff off them, and yeah, they were great for me, and 2 great kids as well. So
love that.
Does much change when you go through the national champs? Is it like, I'm just trying to imagine that first meeting point where everyone meets up and you would all have a vague idea of who each other are, but is there a lot of sort of pre-meetings and meeting and bonding sessions and things like that before you get stuck into the training and the games?
There's a little bit of it. I was pretty lucky enough to play 16s with the majority of the boys, and but like this year you do your 2 trials and then you're into trainings. I think we only had 1 or 2 trainings before our first game, so it's kind of hard to, you know, get the best kids from each team to kind of come together and play as a team, and can be difficult at times, but I think we got along pretty well by the end of it, and it was a great experience.
And you got to come up against that South Australian team that were, you know, probably surprised everyone. Going into that champs, did you expect them to do what they did, or did it surprise you as much as it sort of surprised everyone from the outside?
Yeah, a bit of both. A bit surprising, and I just don't think we showed up on the day as well, which didn't help. But yeah, them beating Allies the week before, which I think some people kind of penciled as the favourites, and yeah, they beat them and then beat us and just made a statement early, and yeah, it wasn't a great day for us, but yeah, we moved on and got two more wins after that. So.
A good question from Ricardo. What are the benefits of being in a Coates League program? I guess from a professionalism standpoint versus playing just your local level football, what kind of extra things happen behind the scenes that people may not know about at Coates League to help get you prepared for this next step?
Yeah, like there's obviously a massive jump in the professionalism of it, and like the training standards, and like we're training 3 times a week compared to your local, which would normally be 1 or 2 times a week, and doing those extra like meetings and stuff, which you don't do at local, and the vision side of it as well, and the high performance stuff, the gym stuff as well, the nutrition and recovery side of it, which is awesome to learn and get a bit of a taste hopefully going into AFL. Next year it'll just ramp up even more, but just that stepping stone into next year. So
does that go to another level too when you do hit the champs and you're in that sort of hub and that program? Do they get you doing different stuff, or is it less contact just because you're with each other for such a short period of time?
No, I think I felt like, me personally, the training standard did ramped up when we got to Metro. LJ, who coached Eastern and Metro as well, was pretty big on we only get to come together once a week, so let's make the most of it. And we really trained hard when we were with each other and made the most of it.
How much is that sort of dictated to you, and how much do the players, I guess some of the guys that have a really high work ethic, how much do they sort of bring that when you get to Metro? There's obviously a lot of really professional guys there at that point. Do they sort of, I don't know, take the reins a little bit as well, or is it's sort of pretty much you only get to train for a certain amount of time and you can't go too much longer, or do some guys sort of go longer and go a little bit harder?
I think, there's obviously some kids that are going to put the work in a bit more, but I think everyone's like pretty switched on and, wanting to like not only do their best, but do their best for the team as well. So I think like from just a Metro point of view, can't talk on the other teams, but like we're all pretty dialed in and all getting there early to do the extras and even little stuff like packing up and that after training, which was good to see, and it was good.
Now the draft combine recently, which is always is it a daunting experience? I guess the combine, or is it the first time you've done a series of tests like that, or have you had exposure to that before? We do the similar tests at the start of the year at the coach testing day, except for the 2K, which no one likes, and that was pretty daunting. The 2K, the walk to the track wasn't great. But the meetings with clubs were. I was pretty lucky. I didn't get any overly weird questions. I was pretty lucky actually. But the meetings are like pretty good experience. Meeting some coaches and that sort of stuff, Sykes and that is really cool. And like even meeting some of the other interstate boys is a good experience as well, considering I didn't make like the academy or the futures game or anything. So kind of the first time I've got to meet them and say get out of those type of boys. So it was good.
Just on that academy one, Xavier, was that something that at the time you were sort of disappointed on not getting a call up for, or it wasn't something that you expected at the time? I sort of, following your trajectory along the season, I feel like you're a player that's probably gained momentum as the season's gone on. I just wanted to sort of hear it from you, like your expectations, whether you thought you were sort of in that mix at the time.
Probably at the time I was a bit disappointed I didn't make that grand final day game, and I kind of knew you'd get picked from for the academy off that game, and I was a bit disappointed. But kind of looking back now, it's probably the best thing that happened, because I don't think I was I don't think I probably deserved it, and probably gave me a bit of drive to kind of work a bit harder. And it's not at the end of the world. And you look at me now, and you look at people like Sully, who don't even make Metro, and they're like in the top 10 contention now. So I held me in good stead, I think. So yeah.
You mentioned about not getting any curly questions from the clubs, which is a good thing, because we have read some comments of some real interesting questions. But did the clubs have all different interview styles? Birdman just popped through a question, or were the interview styles like by and large the same?
Yeah, some of them are pretty similar. They all have different questions and stuff to try to throw you off and that sort of stuff, but most are the same. There's a few that did it differently. There's a couple clubs that kind of want you to do more of the talking and take the lead and that sort of stuff. But for me, I was pretty lucky, and it was mostly just them asking me questions and that sort of stuff, pretty cruisy stuff.
What would you say is your point of difference as a player? As Dill said, your season's progressed really, really well, and I feel like now at the pointy end of it all, you're really right up there in contention in the top echelon. What do you think your point of difference is as a player?
I I think I'm like one of the best competitors in the draft pool without trying to sound like a dick. Like just I hate losing one-on-ones, that sort of stuff, and I just like really competitive and just hate losing.
Can't go on with that. We've got a question here. You go.
Sorry, I was going to cut in there with that. You kind of mentioned not wanting to lose one-on-ones. Is that sort of, you definitely see yourself as that being the fundamentals of your game more so than the offensive part of being a defender?
What was that? Sorry, it kind of cut out.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask that you mentioned you hated losing one-on-ones. Do you see that as sort of the main part of your game and not so much the offensive part of being a defender? You sort of pride yourself on the lockdown part of your game.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think like at the end of the day, no matter if you're a fullback, halfback, running back, whatever you are, you're still a backman, and like your main goal is to stop forwards from kicking goals and win your one-on-ones, and that's what I go at. I don't go out before a game saying I hope I get 6 intercept marks and that sort of stuff, because if you get that but your forward kicks 2 goals, like it's kind of null and void. So just go out there trying to beat my forward and let everything else come with that. So
at the risk of not wanting to turn this into a Richmond-centric segment, Ruck mentioned that you played alongside Josh Smiley last year, which I hadn't even crossed my mind. What was that like playing alongside Josh? And do the players that you've played with previously who have been since drafted, do they still keep in touch and sort of help guide you through any of these, I suppose, next few weeks in the lead up to the draft? Have they got any words of advice at all or anything?
Yeah, no, playing with Josh last year was grouse. He's a super professional kid, and like the way he went about his footy last year and just led by example was like awesome, and kind of took me under his wing a bit. We went to gym together that whole year, and he was grouse for me, and still talk to him a little bit and just gives me a bit of insight. And yeah, he loves it. He's loving his footy at the moment, and hoping for a big year next year.
I did have someone else ask, what were your memories or thoughts on the 2017 grand final, given that we were waiting for a long time? Were you there for that one? Did you get along to the grand final?
Sadly, didn't get any tickets to that game. Dad and me uncle went, and me nan, and me and all the cousins and mum and all uncles and aunties that didn't get to go were at Punt Road, and yeah, that was one of the best days of my life. And
that looked like an epic vibe, though. Punt Road,
so.
That looked unbelievable. That was jam packed. That was pumping.
Yeah, it was. I remember it so clearly. It was awesome day. But the thing was the delay on the TV was like a couple seconds behind. So if we were lining up for a goal or something and we kicked it, we could hear everyone at the G celebrating before it happened, so we'd know if it was a goal or not, which was a bit funny. But yeah,
that'd actually get quite annoying over the course of 4 quarters when you're trying to enjoy the game, I reckon. That'd be very
100%. But it was good. Loved it.
That's all right. Max wants to know what motivates, drives you as a young footballer.
Without going back to the Richmond thing all the time, I used to go to the footy with me nan and all my cousins and me pop as well, and dad and mum and brothers and sisters, and like it was just a big part of my life growing up, and like going and watching the Alex Rances, your Koch and Dusty, and just really admired it, and it was always a dream of mine, and yeah, just wanted to go out there one day and whatever club it is, hopefully it's the Tigers. If not, just going out there and playing AFL has always been my dream.
No, that's awesome, mate. Did you have any other ones still?
I think we covered most of the questions that I had, yeah.
All right, well, that's the footy stuff done. Now it's time for the hard-hitting stuff to get to know you as a person. Just some rapid-fire questions. No, they're not too difficult. Does pineapple belong on a pizza?
Not to me, no.
Oh, fair enough. Chocolate, do you keep it in the fridge or the cupboard?
Cupboard.
Yeah, that's a better answer. Yeah, Sullivan Roby earlier on said fridge, and Dylan and I were a little bit confused by that answer.
That's absolutely mental, I reckon.
Yeah, not sure what he's doing there. Yeah. If you weren't playing footy, what sport would you be playing?
Basketball. I was a big basketball growing up, and love me basketball still. So yeah.
You follow the NBA?
Not too much. Not really. Just go for Bulls because Dad grew up loving Michael Jordan, so just kind of go for them, but don't watch it too closely. But yeah.
Fair enough. Is it chicken
Basketball
parma
background.
or? Yeah, well, I will hear that Scott Pendlebury-esque like for years to come. Is it chicken parma
Yeah,
or
I'd
chicken
say.
palmy?
I'll say Palmer.
Yeah, good answer. Instagram or TikTok?
Probably TikTok. Probably spend too much time on TikTok.
What's your favorite food?
Love a good pizza, wood fire pizza.
Oh, yeah, good call. It wood fire pizza. Do you have a favorite band or song?
Favorite song, probably "My Happiness" by Powderfinger. Favorite song of all time.
Nice. Do you have a hidden talent? I've seen Sam Lawler break out some tunes singing and on guitar. Are you that way inclined?
Nah, sadly not. It'd be nice to be able to break out into song, but I can't sing or anything like that. Hidden talents, not that I can think of. Nah, I'm just a footy player, sadly.
No, nothing wrong with that. Do you have a favorite board game?
Chess. Do love playing chess. Play on my phone all the time, online.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
When you watch a TV show, is it one at a time or do you binge?
I binge it all the time. So, I'll watch the whole TV series in the week, I reckon.
Any good suggestions that are out recently?
I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine again, probably for the 6th time, I reckon. But yeah, that's me go-to, and I reckon I've watched it about 5 or 6 times. So yeah, that's what I'm on at the moment.
Very nice. And the final one, if you're at a swimming pool, do you cannonball into the pool or do you dip your toe in first?
Cannonball for sure.
Yeah, it feels like there's only one correct answer there, and that's the cannonball. But
I don't think anyone's saying dip their toe in.
No, well, I think I probably fall into that category, unfortunately. But the cannonball is meant to be the correct answer. You just get over and done with, and just make a mess and get on with it. But
just get it.
See if anyone's got any questions. Oh, we had one more question come through from Ricardo. In a growing body, what's the balance of team training and playing versus weights, like extra weights and running out of hours and recovery? Do you have to do much outside of the 4 walls of the club?
In season, not too much gym stuff. Just it's a longer season than like what I'm used to at local. I think I played over 20 odd games this year, so it was a longer season. So in season, not like just doing stuff to maintain my body in gym. Not really put too much more muscle on, and a lot of recovery, a lot of saunas, ice baths, that sort of stuff.
Very nice. Well, Xavier Taylor, thank you so much for jumping on tonight, mate. Really appreciate your time, especially in the lead up to the draft. We wish you all the best. You're super talented, and you should be really proud of your efforts and everything you've done so far. And no doubt we'll be hearing your name relatively early on draft nights, hopefully selfishly in the yellow and black. But I know you'll be happy to play anywhere, and it's going to be living out a dream, which is such a good thing.
100%. Happy wherever, but be nice to get to the Tigs for sure.
That's it. Well, enjoy draft night, mate, and we look forward to seeing you out there running around playing AFL in 2026.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Mate.
Have a good night. Thank you.
See you guys.
See you, mate. There we go, folks. Xavier Taylor from Eastern Rangers joining us tonight. Very, very thankful for his time. It's pretty cool, isn't it, Till, just to hear these young kids living out their dream eventually. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Good on them.
No, it's great. And I mean, I think some of the things that get taken for granted are the stories that sort of these guys had to go through a lot of stuff to actually get to where they are today, and a lot of knockbacks and missing out on stuff, and then they keep going and they put in that work. So sometimes you overlook that and you just sort of take the season that they put together for granted a little bit. And yeah, it's impressive. I mean, the Roby story is just ridiculous, and Xavier, in his own right, I don't think if you went back to the beginning of the season, he would have thought that he was going to be in that sort of top 10 conversation either. So incredible work by both those boys.
That's the thing. I guess as supporters and draft watchers, we just sort of look from the outside. We see the highlights, we see the champs games, and just think it's automatic. But like you said, it's the hard work leading up to that, the sacrifices, not only that they've made as players, but their parents and family with all the different trainings and the extra stuff and everything like that. Like, it's a big team family effort to get to this stage. And yeah, Xavier is definitely one that shot up more into calculations. Do you reckon it's fair to say it's gone from about that 15 to 20 range to the top 10 in this last sort of 4 to 5 weeks?
Yeah, I reckon he was always, from about the champs onwards, he was in with a look for that top 10. I do think that positionally, I think overall, if you have a look at drafts in recent years, probably the two positions that are kind of getting a little bit more popular to go in the top end. You've got those small forwards, and then you've got the intercept defenders, the guys that can win the ball back, and then they can be really offensive as well. So I think Xavier kind of fits into that bracket. And then you throw in what he kind of talked about a lot, his competitiveness, his leadership, and all those kind of extra traits that he has. That's what makes him such an impressive package. He has had an incredible end to the season, which I suppose has just given clubs that little bit more confidence that they could take him in the top 10. But I think he was kind of tracking that way, champs and just after the champs as well anyway.
And like, we've been a club who's been strongly linked to him for a little while. And Kaltumi's been hot on us taking him as a lost and replacement, funnily enough, as someone that he sort of watches and models his game on. It's a weird one because I guess for us that might be a bit more needs-based, but I don't mind it. I think we're, and probably a lot of clubs are in a position where you can sort of pick your mark with who you want to take. It doesn't always have to be best available, does it?
No, absolutely not. I think we were kind of talking about it a little bit before, this sort of, I don't know, this fan idea, I suppose, and even maybe media idea that there is a best available talent. It doesn't always, at least in my mind anyway, I don't think it particularly works like that all the time. I think there are AFL traits, there are positions that you need to fill. You need that balance across the entire field, and whatever that looks like for you and whatever's right for you at any particular time can mean that you can reach for a player or take the player that you think is the most talented, the position that you need. I personally wouldn't say that Richmond need a defender right now. I think that's an area where you probably have a fair bit of leadership back there with guys like Vlosten, but also a player like Xavier Taylor. I don't think if you sort of rate him as a person and you rate him as a player, I don't think you want to leave those guys sitting there if they're available either. So it's going to be a tough one because I think there's maybe a couple of other players for the Tigers that are a little bit more needs based. Some of the guys with speed and that sort of thing, but Taylor will be sitting there. And I think you mentioned the Vlosten comparison. I think he has a little bit more dynamism than, say, somebody like a Vlosten who's probably not as athletic as well. So Vlosten does all his work sort of aerially and with the... Yeah, exactly. Taylor can probably... I don't know. There's parts of Taylor that remind me of, a player like Josh Weddle, just with that level of athleticism that he has. So it's going to be a tough one for Richmond. I think we're going to go through it at some point in this live stream, though, Chris.
We'll go through it now. So Dylan put out, we sent through his mock draft, and I've broken it up into a few different segments as to not to reveal the whole thing all at once and ruin the discussion. But we'll go with picks 1 to 5. And what's good about this one, folks, is whilst Dylan's done the mock draft of his selection, he's also given his ranking of the player or where he would rank a player in that spot. So I guess it's more to highlight the difference between a ranking compared to a mock draft. The two don't always align. Just because you rank a player higher up the list, it doesn't mean they fit the needs or potential wants of the clubs in that particular spot. So we'll bring up 1 to 5 first. Take us through it, who you've got here for the top 5.
Here we go. So West Coast on the board first. I have them taking Willem Dersma, which I suppose we don't have to talk about this too much. I think Willem Dersma has been sort of the runaway number 1 pick from about the end of the champs. I think most people had this view in draft circles, even at the beginning of the season, that if Willem Dersma, given the entire package that he has, both athletically and his skills just all around, and I suppose he's kind of got that pedigree with the family being in the AFL as well, and he's been in that sort of professional environment. We've seen that with father-sons like Levi Ashcroft and players like this as well. They sort of can kind of hit the ground running a little bit more in the AFL straight away. So most people had this sort of theory that Willem Dersma, if he just played well and he got pretty good numbers and he had good performances across the season, he was going to be the number one pick based on all of that. And that's kind of how it has played out eventually. So I think West Coast will take him, and I think pretty much any team at this point, if they had the number one pick, would take Willem Dersma.
Yeah, I think so. It's still funny to me, though, because I think, like we said earlier in the day, that even at this point in time, that Lawler wasn't pinned as number one. So I guess things can change, but it does seem, for all intents and purposes, pretty well set in stone. Do you have any concerns on his frame size, or do you feel like he'll grow into that and that will allow him to play multiple positions?
Yeah, I never really care about how skinny a player is when they're 17, 18 years old, to be honest. I think I'm more worried about how they attack the football, and if I feel like they have a sort of robustness in the contest, and if they're cracking in all the time and they're picking up injuries all the time, and I think there's sort of a fragility there, I suppose, in the way that they're playing their body is. But as far as just over 2-3 years, they're going to put on weight, they're going to put on size, and I'd more be sort of looking at the way that they move and their physiological, like their body, the reach and stuff like that they can bring. So it's not a problem for me with Willem Dersma at all, really. I suppose if there was any one worry about him, it would maybe be it's just what is that perfect position. But these things can go either way. I mean, some players come in as utilities and they sort of never find that AFL position, and then other players like Marcus Bontempelli go on to be the best player of a generation. Yeah. So these things can go either way, and you can only judge what you see in their underage and sort of try to project that as best you can up into the AFL level. But he certainly has the traits to be able to do it. It's just going to be, like every player, does he have the character to kind of sustain an AFL career?
Time will tell. Pick 2, you've got the bid coming in for Zeke Hewland. Yeah,
I mean, I think most teams in the last few years, when they've had stacked picks, double picks, they sort of have a bid with their second pick. Yep. Kind of just seems to be the way of it. I'm not 100% sure when this pick is exactly going to come. I had Zeke Hewland as the overall third player, but the player that I had second also isn't a player that I had West Coast aligned with as well. So I think Zeke Hewland, Dylan Patterson could be in the line for a bid here. And I think, obviously the Gold Coast Suns will match that, and it will, end up pretty straightforward there. These bids, it's always just a matter of when they come.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully West Coast and Richmond do the right thing and bid and make the Gold Coast Suns earn those two players who are very highly talented. West Coast, pick 3, which is a really interesting one, just based on, I suppose, where Dyson Sharp's been placed, not just by you, but by a lot of people throughout the whole year. He's a fascinating story.
Yeah, so I suppose I think this is where the draft is going to get interesting. I know we'll get more information over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and stories will break and clubs will be linked to players. There'll be trades and things like that, and that'll give us a better idea of who is going to come in at this West Coast second pick. I think Dersma's pretty much locked, but for me, I just still align to the thought process that Dyson Sharp, the character piece that is attached to him of what he brings from a leadership point of view and what he can do for club culture is just so necessary at West Coast at the moment. They lack leaders. They lack players in that, probably 28 to 32-year-old bracket that I guess build culture at the club. They don't have a lot of connection between the really young guys and the older guys. So having these guys like Dyson Sharp, who are very extroverted, sort of alpha type players, I think will be amazing in that environment in a rebuilding West Coast side. I think if you look back to the Gold Coast Suns a few years ago when they had that double picks at the top of the draft and they took Noah Anderson and Matt Rowell. They took Matt Rowell as the number 1 pick and Noah Anderson as that more sort of talented midfielder. I think this is sort of what West Coast can do this year, with Dersma being your sort of Noah Anderson and Dyson Sharp sort of being that first possession Matt Rowell type player who, let's be honest, the West Coast Eagles, they need to perform. They need to start getting their performances better on the field straight away. And not every other club in this draft is in that position. So I think Dyson Sharp for West Coast specifically is just a really good pick from a character perspective and someone that can just make them better straight away. I mean, the only other thing for me to say on this is the fact that I was very hesitant around Dyson Sharp early in the season. But I think to sort of justify that 180, it was probably, it's mainly around the leadership and character side of him and just the continued performances. And I mentioned to you earlier, Chris, like there becomes a point where you can be against something, but if you continue to do it in the face of them playing so well over and over and the performances keep coming, you're pretty much just being biased against it. So I had to change my mind, and that's what I did.
He's a gun player, best in the carnival. The one I'll ask you about, though, is obviously CDT and to a lesser extent recently Roby have also been linked to West Coast, whether it's by fans or in the media, maybe a combination of both. You see them passing up on CDT in particular?
Yeah, this one's tricky because obviously Cooper Duff-Tytler is an extremely talented player. I tweeted way back after, I think the first time I ever saw him play or the second time I ever saw him play was in that academy side, and I sort of said he'll be extremely hard to usurp as the number one pick in this draft, just given the upside that he potentially provides. But it is a difficult position. There's still some ambiguity around that ruck position overall. Just in the sense that the ruck rules are sort of continuously changing, and I think clubs, it's hard to get your strategy right around the rucks and how much capital you sort of invest in that position. There's also the fact that just bringing in a ruck in general, they usually take a long time to bed in, right? It can take 3, 4, 5 years. I think the exception to that, and maybe a similar player to Cooper Duff-Tytler, is Luke Jackson. But you look at the environment that he went into. He went into a Melbourne team that had probably the best ruck of a generation in Max Gawn to learn off and be the second fiddle. Cooper Duff-Tytler goes to West Coast. He's looking at Matt Flynn and Bailey Williams. It's not exactly,
fair call,
generational ruckman that he's going to be learning off there. And as well as that, they need performances on the field. And he's likely to, not get as much of the footy just naturally given the size and the position that he is, albeit he's an incredibly talented player. So for me, Dyson Sharp just works in this position, and that just means that Cooper Duff-Tytler becomes available to a team down the order.
I like it. It makes sense, and I think we might pass on him for similar reasons. Pick 4, you've got the Tigers taking Sullivan Roby, which I think will please the masses.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose because of his bolter status, he does become maybe a bit more of a fan favourite, but I think also the way that he plays, and people can connect to that story. I think we've had a lot of good success stories with bolters like this as well. And there becomes a point where there's a bolter and they're hyped and you're watching them and you're like, is this real? But Sullivan Roby put together enough of a season at the back end there, a really good Coates Talent League campaign that was capped off in that premiership win. So he's sort of ticking a lot of boxes along the way. He's having good performances. He kicked some big goals in that grand final. And really the only thing lacking from his CV is that national championships at this point. But I just can't see a world where if he was in the national championships, he wouldn't have played well. He's just a big physical force. He's an explosive, big-bodied midfielder that can mark the ball. He can push forward, hit the scoreboard. He's kind of the perfect player that AFL teams are looking for at the moment. That's why Richmond took Sam Lawler with pick 1 last year. And it's a similar reason. I think he probably would be close to the runaway number 1 pick if he'd done this for a season. And, if he'd have picked up a Lark medal in the national champs, we'd be talking about Sullivan Roby as the number 1 pick. That's why I've got him ranked 2nd. And it's a no-brainer for Richmond to pick him up at number 4 if he's there.
Agree. I think it helps even out our midfield rotation and half-forward rotation for the future. Number 5, you've got the Gold Coast bid coming in for Dylan Patterson, which, like you said, can kind of happen anywhere in between there. It's all a bit of guesswork. I'll bring up the extended list, so 1 to 10, so number 6 comes back to us, and you've got us going with Sam Grill.
Yeah, this one's, I suppose, compared to the consensus, if you want to call it that, I think probably most people's consensus sort of revolves around the Kaltoumi draft, and I think he has Sam Grill back at somewhere between 12 and 15. Don't quote me on that, but
I think it was somewhere around. Yep.
It might be 12 actually, where he's got Sam Grill ranked. I just really like him. I mean, it's a personal preference type thing. I think he's got pace. He's got the best sort of sidestep and agility in this draft. He's a good ball winner when he does go on the inside. For Oakley Chargers, he's playing inside mid from week to week. He gives me major Zach Butters vibes. He can step in and out of traffic. He can open up the field. I've heard people say that he's not a very good kick. I think he's a pretty damn good kick. I mean, sometimes the conditions at Coates Talent League games aren't the best. I think this guy has a variety of kicks as well. He can sort of go around the body. He can be running at full steam and still hit guys. And he sort of gets, when he gets that momentum coming off half back and he can sort of chain up and go multiple handballs, he's able to release the ball really quickly. If you watch some of his clips closely, he's got a nice little handball action where he can generate a lot of power off a short kind of backswing, which is really good for that run and gun style through the midfield, and a way that Oakley tried to play. It's a way that Vic Metro tried to play in the Carnival as well. Sometimes it doesn't work, and I think it's a high risk sort of game plan, so there can be some turnovers in that. But Grill pretty much has everything. I mean, even you can imagine him in 2, 3, 4 years with that sort of spring that he's got in his step, that sort of elasticity that he's got, that he could be a better aerial player as well when he sort of fills out and gets some strength. At the moment, he doesn't have a lot of mass behind him, so he's not that explosive player that he will be in 3, 4, 5 years' time for me. He's just sort of a raw, wiry, fast kid at the moment. So I think when he hits the gym for a few years, that's going to look a little bit more like Zach Butters perhaps than it is what he is at the moment, which is very wiry.
And you've got him ranked at number 4 overall, which is interesting. And I suppose we were talking earlier in the day about the perception of bad kicking in the Coates comp, and I think it's a little bit overstated, isn't it? I mean, reality is that all players make kicking mistakes, whether they're Dustin Martin, whether they're Scott Pendlebury, whoever. Everyone has turnovers. But I think what we inevitably do as supporters is when we're watching these Coat Leagues highlight reels, I think we're subconsciously comparing the kid we're watching who's 18, not yet in an AFL environment, to the best kick in our AFL side. And if it's not hitting that benchmark, then we don't want to know about it. But I don't think that's really fair, or it's not really fair or relevant. I mean, reality is these kids don't play Coates League if they can't kick. I know there's different degrees and things like that, but I think a lot of these top 15, top 20 in particular, I think their skills are neat enough and just fine.
Absolutely. And obviously position comes into that a lot as well. So, obviously if you're behind the ball and you're hitting kicks in the time and space at half back, it's a lot easier than when you're in the forward half of the ground as well. So there's a lot that goes into that. And then there's that sort of juxtaposition between your technical skills and your decision-making as well. Sometimes you can be a good technical kick, but you make decisions under pressure, and that's something that you have to work on. But I like Grill. He's one of my favourite players in this draft, and I'm sort of happy to have him up here. I think he suits what Richmond need particularly as well. I mean, you look at how you've kind of starting to build this midfield. It's got a lot of big bodies. It's got a lot of slower guys with physicality and stuff like that. You are going to need some balance in there, and you're going to need some guys with fast feet.
We do need
Sam
speed.
Grill looks like exactly. And Sam Grill looks like a player to me, and it can probably start off half back for you, just feeling like a Dan Rioli type position, and then go into the midfield in a few years.
Pick number 7, you got the Bombers taking Cooper Duff-Taylor.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, they don't have a sort of recognised ruck now. Obviously, Sam Draper's gone out the door. Todd Goldstein also retired, so they're sort of short in that position. But at the same time, this one's mostly just a talent pick, really. He's there on the board. He's probably a player that you didn't expect that you were going to get in this particular mock draft that I'm doing. Of course, this could go completely the other way, and he could go to West Coast at pick 2, or he could go to Richmond at pick 3 or 4. So if he's on the board, I think Essendon would be crazy at this point not to take him. I think this is the final place that he will go. And for it, I think he probably comes into the AFL system and he plays as a key position player, plays as a key forward, but he's so mobile that he can go on ball and, probably play a little bit of midfield. He could probably even play wing with the skill set that he has.
I think he fits Essendon the best out of Richmond, West Coast, Essendon. They do have a need for a key forward, and obviously they have a need for a ruck as well, given who left, as you said. I know he's talented, but I do think fit-wise, I reckon that's bang on.
I mean, at the end of the day, they could all use him, all of those clubs. But is he too luxury for West Coast and Richmond? I suppose that's the question.
Yeah, exactly. I think he'd have more of an immediate impact at a club like Essendon. Pick 8, you've got the Dan Annable bid, which can come sort of anywhere within there. Pick 9, Essendon with their second pick, you've gone Xavier Taylor, who we just had on before.
Yeah, and this one, I think, again, probably isn't necessarily a positional need for the Bombers. They have drafted a little bit in that space. I mean, Jaden Ewan came into the team as a bit of a halfback flanker, and then you had Angus Clark, who's sort of that medium defender as well. Zach Johnson's back there to distribute the ball. So, and then they're sort of, I suppose they do have a few like elder statesmen. Ben Mackay as a key position defender. They've got Jordan Ridley as well, who's probably a more similar player to Xavier Taylor. But I just think the Bombers, similar to what I said about the West Coast Eagles and kind of wanting to bring characters into your team, I think Essendon have sort of been in this malaise for 10, 15, 20 years now where they kind of bring in, for me, like two different types of players. They either bring in these sort of one-dimensional inside midfielders, or they bring in these really athletic, overly athletic players that can't play footy. That's sort of been their recruiting, how their recruiting's gone anyway. And I think Xavier Taylor probably just fits that really good footballer type. He is athletic as well, which is a bonus, but he's also got the leadership qualities that not every player in this draft crop has. So I think he's a piece that comes in, can kind of marshal the back line and play alongside these younger players that are starting to come through and be a culture piece for them as well. So Essendon wouldn't necessarily be going after with either of these picks with anyone that they absolutely need. I think if you're talking about needs for the Bombers, they'd probably prefer to get in a midfielder with kind of that high upside, I suppose. But with both of these picks, they tick boxes that they need for their club, I think, in this time, as far as from a cultural point of view.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Ben, I do tend to agree. I do think that if Duff Tyler is at our pick 3, that we will get some phone calls from clubs wanting to jump up. And Essendon, I've always felt Essendon would be one of them. But as Blair Hartley has always said, it would have to be for a head-turning offer. And yeah, I'm not sure whether clubs are prepared to do that, but that's what it will take. Pick 10 for the D's, Aidan Schubert.
Yeah, this one's probably, it's just a bit of a blind spot for the D's, isn't it, for several years? They just haven't sort of been able to nail that key position forward. They've gone for, Jefferson came in, didn't he? Van Rooyen's shown something, and he's still pretty young at 22, but as is Jefferson, to be fair, but none of those guys have really been able to hit the ground running. So you've got Harrison Petty there, but overall I think their tall stocks lack a bit of quality. And Aidan Schubert's, he's probably a key position forward that's been slept on a little bit in this draft. I think he was one that was coming into that national championships. I think not a lot of people knew about him. I remember talking about him, and he was kind of just this under the radar, gangly sort of almost 200 centimetre kid that was from a basketball background. But what he did in the champs was pretty incredible. The sheer amount of disposals that he can win as a 200 centimetre player. He gets around the ground. He's got an amazing tank on him. I think he ran the 2K time trial in about somewhere between 6:15 and 6:20. So he's got elite endurance. And he just sort of bobs up and acts as a little bit of an extra midfielder, really. I think there's parts of his game that remind me a bit of like a Tim English, how he just sort of gets involved in chains, bobs up, takes uncontested marks, and then, puts the ball inside 50 and goes again. But he can also sort of, get in behind the ball, take some intercept marks in the D50, but also go forward and take some big, strong, powerful marks. He's got really broad shoulders. He's got long arms, and it's just hard for defenders to get in there if they're not sort of in his height range. So when he's manned up on those, I guess, Xavier Taylor types that are about 190, it's tricky for them to get an arm in.
Don't mind it. He'd actually be a really nice fit for them, to be honest. I really like that pick. Opening up to the next slots, we've also got the Carlton bid coming in for Harry Dean. You see that one coming through outside the 10? There was a bit of speculation, albeit it could have been purely from supporters, that West Coast may run the gauntlet a bit early. Do you see that anything tricky like that happening?
Oh, I mean, this bid could come earlier than I've got it for sure. But I think the West Coast one's purely posturing, to be honest. I think West Coast have got their sights set on one of those Carlton picks for a trade and putting it out there into the ether that they might bid on him at 2 would force Carlton's hand, I suppose. You saw this with Kako last year with Melbourne coming for one of Essendon's picks, and they were sort of one of the teams that were likely to bid on him in the top 10 as well. That bid never came. And from my experience, the picks for the father, sons and academies tend to come later than you think they're going to.
Yeah. All right. So they'll get him one way or another, I reckon. Pick 12 for the D's back-to-back pick, Sam Cumming, which I reckon that's a great selection. He's going to be a good player.
Every time I do a mock or a ranking, Sam Cumming feels uncomfortably low to me every time. And even if
you can see him as high as 5 or 6, I reckon.
I would not be shocked if he ended up at Richmond. I know he's not one of those like first choice ones for them. You see more Grill, you see Xavier Taylor, you see Roby, but I don't know. Like I could imagine if Roby's not on the board, that Sam Cumming could end up at Richmond. I've seen crazier things than that, but I've got him going
high on my list as well. I just think his blend of midfield and forward work again suits where we're trying to get our depth to, our midfield and forward depth to.
He's just one of those players that's so versatile and can do a bit of everything. You don't, we talk about these guys like Dyson Sharp and Oliver Greaves, and they're they're not risky. I mean, they're really high floor players, those guys, but they can be risky in the sense that they're one-dimensional and they can only fulfill one role. And if you get too many of those guys, your team can be pretty unbalanced quickly. So a player like Sam Cumming, who does a bit of everything, is great. And I think what he does defensively is just as good as what he does offensively. And you don't say that often about under-18 players at all. He reminds me, like, he's a tough one. He reminds me of someone like an Isaac Heaney with his sort of athleticism and his marking ability and his combativeness around the ball. He's not as good of a kick as someone like an Isaac Heaney, and his skills aren't as good. But then he's got a bit of an Andy Brayshaw thing to me as well, how he sort of defends on transition and gets arms in there and just pressures and harasses the opposition. And he's sort of got this inner mongrel in him that just wants to be involved in the play all the time, which I really like. I think his contest game is definitely stronger than his outside game. But I think clubs would certainly see with Sam Cumming that in several years' time, when he does build up that tank a little bit better and improves, his 2Kers and stuff like that, that's kind of where the growth will come and where he'll get a little bit more of the ball on the outside. So he's a really tough one. Anywhere from probably 5 to 15 for me, Sam Cumming could fall. And I really like him as a player, and he continues to be uncomfortably low for me here again at 12.
I think he's maybe a little bit of a victim of not playing out the back half of the year with the injury. I think he kind of just falls away a little bit. I was really impressed with his senior football work. I just always hold that in really high regard, being able to mix and match it with senior bodies and still get 22 and 3 goals or whatever he got is impressive. And I think you're right. He could go anywhere from 12. And I could see him landing with us as well. I don't think that's out of the realm whatsoever. So for next, we've got 13. So Carlton, that'll get partly absorbed with the Dean match bid points and then slide down to 15. Yep. So the Hawthorn drop in at 14 with Noah Hibbins-Hargraves. That's maybe as high as I've seen him, but I like him. I think he can be a game changer who's just had a bit of inconsistency issues.
Yeah, and if you see there on my rankings, I've actually got him at number 12 on mine. Yeah. I rate this guy really highly, albeit a divisive player and someone that makes you think more than once, definitely, about where do I put this guy in the rankings, because he feels very luxury because he's quite an outside player. I think for the Stingrays earlier in the season, he was playing predominantly off a wing and he just was getting that sort of 15 touches and a goal, and sort of like, does this guy have that robustness that I talked about earlier? Like, can he sort of crack in, win the ball on the inside and sort of be a distributor as well and be one of those sort of highly technical mids? Because he is one of the most skilled players in this crop. I mean, he can sort of, he can handball on both sides of his body. He's got really nice movement and he just sort of opens the game up when he's at his best. We saw that in the second half of the season. I would say post-champs is when he became a midfielder. And you just saw him really excel, and he was having those games where he'd have 30 touches and kick 4 to 5 goals there for a stretch of about 3 games in a row. At the champs, I think you probably saw the major point of difference for him, and that's how clutch he is around goals. The WA game was absolutely incredible, just how he was able to impact on the scoreboard late in that game. It was sort of goal for goal. It was very cagey. They ended up losing it, but he kicked 4 goals in the second half. 3 of them were in the last quarter, and just such poacher goals, such opportunistic goals from nothing. And that really showed off his quality, both by foot and both by hand, with whatever he was doing. But I think for clubs, Noah Hibbins-Hargraves is going to have that flexibility and versatility to be able to play lots of different positions. They're going to be able to fit him in across half back, potentially on a wing. They can play him forward. And then in the long term, you'd want him to be playing on ball at some point, I think, in his career. He gives me vibes positionally with the type that he is, kind of being that mid-180s forward player, like a little bit of a Harry Sheezel. I think I see him as one that if he goes to the right club, I wouldn't necessarily want him to go to one of the bottom teams and kind of take the big hits that a Dyson Sharp or a Sam Cumming could take. But if he goes to a good team a la Murphy Reed Freo in 2025, I think you could sort of see similar output from him.
Agree. And he's been one that I've always said that if we were splitting picks, this is probably more when Gold Coast before they traded and did all their things, that if we were to split and get a teens pick, I'd be all in for him because I always felt he'd be a good match with Taj Houghton. You're right though. Like coming to a team like us, I think would expose his flaws more than it will going to a Hawthorn. I think even in Jesse's mock, I think we had him at Geelong, which would be another good outcome. He'll slot in perfectly, like a Murphy Reed or a Sam Davidson at the Dogs, where they can just go in, do their role really well, and everything else kind of takes care of itself. which is annoying because those teams will keep getting better with a pick in the teens, but he's super talented.
I totally agree. And like, it sort of screams what, like, Richmond probably would have picked up a guy like this last year with all those picks that they had.
Yeah.
Again, it feels luxury, but these guys like Noah Hibbins-Hargraves, they add so much value to your team in the long term. When you start to get good, that's when they become good.
He's going to be a good player. So pick 15 to Carlton due to the picks or the sliding down. You got him with Lockie Dobberstein, which I think is a really good selection.
Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward, really, isn't it? Carlton lack a small forward. Lockie Dobberstein's a high-quality small forward, and I think he would just bring a quality and a just, I suppose, like a doggedness to those forward flankers that they've got. I mean, who have they had running through there in recent years? Durden, Owies, Motlop's been through there, and just none of them have really been able to. None of them are that high quality. A lot of those guys are taken from rookie drafts and mid-season drafts and stuff like that. So just go and get one. Just go and get a good one in the draft. And I think Lockie Dobberstein, his goal output, it's up there with players like Nick Watson in the Coates Talent League. I think he's got a better goal output than Nick Watson did. Champs was a little bit more down compared to someone like a Nick Watson, but you're talking about a player that's a very high quality small forward, someone that takes his chances, is such a threat from forward half stoppages. He's got that thing, small forwards when they start to sort of drop the knees around stoppages and they just become such a threat because you just think you're going to give away a free kick every time. Dobberstein's got that, but he finishes his goals. He's got good penetration to him. That Coates Talent League grand final, he had a couple of shots from 45 to 55 metres out and easily cleared the goal line. So it's not like he's one of those guys that can't kick over a jam tin. He's pretty much got it all as a small forward. So I've got him ranked there, as you can see, 10 overall. Yep. So for me, it's a bit of a slide. Most people have him around that, I guess, 15 to 20. I see that as a little bit of a conservatism amongst draft rankers that they don't want to go all in on that small forward. But we've seen with Nick Watson, I think this is a player that's even, Hannaford and guys like that last year, and Darcy Jones for GWS, Phoenix Gothard. This position is valued now and it's really highly rated, and teams that don't have quality small forwards are getting left behind.
For those who've just joined as well, just to explain what you're seeing on screen. So we've got the first three columns are the mock draft order that Dylan's gone with, but the last column is where he actually has them as a power ranking, just to kind of show that just because a player's ranked higher, like Lockie Dobberstein, doesn't mean he's suited to a team at that place or earlier, and it can all kind of be shuffled around. So I thought it's really cool to see how both of those things play out. On to the last page. So from pick 16 onwards, this pick hurts me a little bit because I'm really hoping that Harley Barker slips to pick in the 30s with our third pick, which I think is very, very wishful thinking. But the Giants, if they can get Harley Barker, I think he's going to be a great wingman for many years to come.
Yeah, this guy's prototypical, really, as a modern-day wingman. He's got elite speed, about a 2.8, 20-metre sprint, like absolutely rapid off the mark. Bombs up and down that wing all day. His endurance is really good to go with that. And he just constantly tests the opposition. No one in that national championships could go with him. And with the midfield, that if you have a dominant midfield with somebody like Harley Barker, he can just get forward on you really quickly and create problems in the forward half of the ground because he's good in the air as well. So he's going to take marks. He's going to test you at ground level inside forward 50, and he's going to kick goals. He did that for SA. He's pretty much been doing it all season. He did go down with a knee injury, though, and that's probably what is making him slide a little bit in people's rankings. I haven't really seen him inside the top 20, but he's a super, super talent. He's really technically skilled as well. He can be creative by foot, by hand. So I love him as a player. Could you see, you look at Taj Houghton last year, a knee injury after round 3 or 4. Could you see a team, going even towards the top 10 for someone like a Harley Barker? I've seen crazier things. So I think he's super talented. And I was just going to say, a team like GWS, they can afford to go for a player like a winger, I think, with their first pick, just because they are a team that has a lot of talent on their list already.
That's the thing. You either have to be stacked in that position or you have to have multiple picks. I don't think any of us in the top 10 would probably take him that high, but if you were splitting a pick and you had an early teens pick, there's no reason why you wouldn't. And like I've always said, that we've got time on our side, so if we need to wait a year to see him, then that's no issue from our perspective. But yeah, whoever gets him, if they can wait it out and get him right, he will be a very, very good player. Pick 17 for the Eagles, Jacob Farrow. He's an interesting one. I can see him going higher too. I think he could be one that creeps up on draft night.
Yeah, for sure. And you're starting to see now with this group of players that we're talking about, probably anyone from outside Cooper Duff Tytler, maybe outside the academy players there, you're starting to get to a point where you can throw a blanket over a lot of these guys, and it's horses for courses. So Jacob Farrow probably fits that. If there's a team that, really wants a big-bodied mid, someone that can kick the footy ahead of this, I think they're going to have a look at this guy. It's probably a bit of a lazy pick by me that he goes to West Coast here as a Western Australian, but those clubs do tend to, those Perth clubs, if there's a player that sort of, fits on talent for them, they will take them. Given that they took Dyson Sharp a little bit higher, they'd probably, in an ideal world, I think they'd be keen for someone like a Lockie Doveston because they don't have a lot of quality small forwards either. But I think to bring in, if you're West Coast and you brought in Dyson Sharp and Jacob Farrow, that would really deck out your midfield, wouldn't it, for the next 10 years?
To surround Harley Reid with those two wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for sure. Pick 18, Western Bulldogs, Josh Lindsay. And he's an interesting one because he's a name that was touted sort of top 5, top 10 for quite a long time. And I guess as the years gone on, it slipped a little bit further and further down the list.
Yeah, with Lindsay, it's probably just not having that much of a weapon outside that kicking. While that is really, really high level and he's a good decision maker and pretty much he's going to set you up off half back. Do you want to invest a top 10 pick in a player that's predominantly that and using the ball behind the ball basically? So when he has stepped into the midfield at Coates Talent League level, he hasn't probably thrived as much as I would have expected him to, and he gets caught on the ball a little bit more there. So he's certainly more comfortable when he's in that defensive 50, just sort of dictating, and he's got a little bit more time. Can he become a midfielder in the long term? I think it's possible. But at the end of the day, he's sort of a 180 centimetre guy. He doesn't have a major amount of athleticism there. So you're buying into that disposal behind the football. And I think players like that probably end up falling outside the top 10 traditionally. And I just think that's what's going to happen here. And there's even, since the emergence of a player we're going to talk about in a second in Oscar Taylor, he probably even falls behind a player like that, just given the athletic profile of someone like a Taylor.
It's a fair call. Pick 19, Adelaide, Javan Filippo, who is another one who could go quite literally anywhere, couldn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's really difficult. I had him earlier in the season mocked up way up in the top 10. I saw the first time I ever saw him play, I'm like, this guy's going to go number 1. He's going to end up number 1. Okay. I'm like, straight to the top for me. He's getting in the top 10, but he probably does still have a few flaws in his game, albeit if you put everything, like he just when he's on and he's playing well and he's sort of getting that 20 to 30 touches and having a big impact on the game, he just looks absolutely incredible. He's got elite speed, elite endurance. He's flying, taking marks. He's bringing teammates into it. He's kicking long range goals. He's got it all. I mean, similar to his brother, what he's done at AFL level, they just look really good, don't they? They just look like really, really good footballers. Jevon's a little bit different. He's not so much of that third tall key position. He's more of a midfield size, about 183. Heaney traits, again, I know I mentioned that with Sam Cumming, but he's sort of, I guess, in a perfect world, that's the sort of player that he is. But he also does just have, I guess, performances where he sort of drifts in and out of games a little bit too much to put him up into that top 10 group at the moment. So he missed the national champs with a broken arm, so we didn't get to see him at that level. We've seen him at SANFL level, which is at times difficult to judge. I think the numbers and stuff like that are a little bit elevated at that level, and he's clearly way too athletic for players in that SANFL under 18 level. So a difficult one. He could hurt a lot of teams in this draft, though, if he turns out to be everything that he could be.
He could be, yeah. And he backs himself too, based on his recent comments, which I loved. Pick 20, Geelong, Oscar Taylor, who you mentioned. He shot lights out, didn't he, at the Combine? Which I don't know if that caught you by surprise. It probably caught me by surprise and a lot of other people. But he really put his name up in lights on the back of those results, I think.
It didn't catch me by surprise, but only because in the Rookie Me Central released a pre-season testing as well, and I think he did about a 2.85 in that for the 20-meter sprint. So the 20-meter sprint didn't particularly surprise me. I suppose once you get to that end of season combine, it actually thins out some of the athletes a little bit. So it was kind of likely that sort of time would win at the national over back in pre-season where they're testing guys that are less football, more athletic. And then by the end of the season, the guys that can't play footy kind of get weeded out. So Oscar Taylor's still there. So it didn't particularly surprise me at the combine, but probably what did surprise me for me was actually his football towards the back end of the season, because he just went to another level from the start of the season. I go through at the beginning of the season and check some of those times because I want to have a look at the guys that are really athletic and test really athletic and see how they play. And he didn't really catch the eye, I guess, too much in the front half of the season. I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, I haven't really seen it. But I think he probably worked really hard across the season on certain things in his game. His kicking became a major weapon for him in the second half of the season. After missing champs, I think that was a big disappointment for him. And then he sort of bounced back like a lot of players. I feel like that Eastern Rangers team, the whole team's a bit of a redemption arc team.
I
right?
know. Crazy.
Yeah, with Roby and Taylor and the other Taylor. So, yeah, no, he's just, he's got amazing movement. He can step in and out of traffic, dictate things behind the ball, similar to what we talked about with Josh Lindsay. And you look at the way that he plays, and it's so similar to someone like an Errol Goulden. He's always willing to take the game on. He's sort of trying to get the ball in the front half of the ground as well. So he's just going to be a weapon, I think, inside this top 20 at the latter end. Again, for that position as a halfback flanker, you're probably not going to take him in the top 10, of course, but teams that need a halfback flanker, he's going to be right up there. And did Geelong need one? I mean, they probably need young talent on any line, really. The Cats, don't they? They don't sort of draft as much as other teams. They're more of a recruiting team. So I think this one works, as would a Josh Lindsay if he fell through as well.
TL, just quickly, that's probably my fault for not adding it in there, but it would be a pick that's used on Adam Swade. So it was a bid pick that I didn't put in there, but that's where that pick would fall for Essendon. So apologies for not slotting that one in there. But pick 21, Fremantle, Ollie Greaves.
Ollie Greaves here to Freo. I mean, this one's probably more of just a talent pick, really. He's still on the board. Do you just take a player like that? Do Freo need to get a midfielder in? Not necessarily. They don't have, I mean, outside of Hayden Young, they probably don't have that big physical kind of bull midfielder in there. I think if their kind of first possession player is Caleb Sarong predominantly. So this could give them maybe another angle if Greaves can come in and hit the ground running. But ultimately for Freo, I think that generally what they do from a draft perspective is just go for best available. I think probably the perfect player for them in the draft would be Harley Barker, but I had him to the Giants a little bit earlier. I think if there's one position that they need to fill on the field right now, it's probably that wing position. Harley Barker would be perfect, but I think Ollie Greaves on talent would work for them here as well.
He'll be a good get for whoever gets him. I think he could work okay for them. And rounding out the picks, the Hawks, pick 22, Mitch Marsh. Perfect replacement for Jack Gunston.
Yeah, and Mitch Marsh should probably be someone that the Dockers would also be looking at. But I think people underestimate the versatility of Mitch Marsh. I think there's a potential that he could play on all three lines. I think he could play as an interceptor behind the ball. He's one of the best kicks in this draft crop. So he can really dictate from back behind the ball, but he can also go up to a wing. I see his trajectory into the AFL similar to a player like Dan Curtin. I think what he's doing from an aerial perspective on a wing and just being able to bomb up and down that wing with the speed that he has and the athleticism, Mitch Marsh could be able to do that. And he sort of given where he played for South Australia, people see him as this third tall and this sort of Jack Gunston replacement, but I think he can play pretty much across any line, and he's a super versatile prospect.
Yeah, a few people have mentioned him playing on the wing. So I really liked what he did at the Champs, playing up forward. I thought he really stamped his authority on a lot of games for South Australia. So to then sort of try and contemplate him playing on a wing, kind of like a Dan Curtin, is interesting. But to then hear you say he's one of the more skilled players in the draft too, then I guess it can make sense for them. It would be a pretty good pick for there you go. He's a
tricky matchup too.
Scary.
Oh, sorry.
As Grock said there, Weddle and Marsh on the wings. Scary prospect for the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks have recruited a lot of players like this, these just giant utilities. I mean, you look at their back line, it's sort of, they've got all these guys that are 190 centimetre plus, super athletic, just bombing up and down the wing, creating overloads, and they throw Sicily forward, and then Hardwick goes forward, and they're back in defence, and everyone's kind of everywhere. And I think they like those versatile players. They don't tend to go for... I've seen a lot of people mock Oliver Greaves to Hawthorn, but doesn't sort of seem like the player that they would traditionally go for, as he's a bit more one-dimensional and can probably only play that sort of inside mid role.
Well, yeah, you can see Marsh going quite high, can't you? But whoever gets him is going to be onto an absolute gem. But I appreciate you putting together that mock and the power rankings as well. I thought that was a really cool touch to see how the rankings go side by side. And obviously, just so people are aware, mock drafts are exactly that. Things can change, and nothing's ever certain in life with these things. But that's the fun of it. The fun of it's the guessing side of it.
Absolutely, and I have zero connection to clubs or anything like that. So it's just my take. There's no news there.
Birdman got a question. If West Coast want Dean as per rumours, why don't they go for Taylor? Well, I think you kind of alluded to it's more of a scare tactic to get a pick. But if they do want a defender, then they very well could have a look at Taylor.
Yeah, I think they're in the mix for a defender in general. I just think they as a club, I mean, they're in the mix for everyone, aren't they? They need pretty much players on every single line, and I think they're going to value the midfield a little bit higher. But as for that specific Dean pick, I think that's purely politics at this point.
I think so too. It's all, they're just bluffing. Ricardo wants to know, who might we take with our pick 38, which will come in after all the picks get absorbed? What kind of players do you see maybe hanging around at that point of the draft?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when you actually start to extrapolate the players out, like I'm sort of in the moment right now where I'm sort of going out past the top 30, past the top 40. And it is a little bit better out there than what we probably once thought. I mean, I think people have talked about this draft being shallow a lot for the year, but there's still some quality players. I think, if you go back to the start of the season, players like Fred Rodriguez and Sam Swadling and these guys were really highly touted. So I think the Tigers could be looking to pick up somebody like that just kind of slipped through the cracks. But there's also guys like Riley Onley. It's probably more, I mean, if you picked up Sullivan Roby, you're not going to get Riley Onley, but I think Richmond could probably have a look at some small forwards. There's a guy at Vic Country, Taylor Byrne, who's a really high quality player, someone that plays a little bit like a Tom Papley. I think that's someone that Richmond could be after. I know you guys were in for Malcolm Roses Jr. In the off season, so it's not your strongest area forward of the ball, I suppose. So there's tools out that way. If Louis Emmett or Archie Ludovic slid a little bit, there's Liam Heatherton, another key position player as well. I know you picked up a lot last year, but in this draft, I feel like some of those guys will, if they're there and you've got a pick to spare, you might just take them for the talent purposes. Roll the dice a little bit. I think you will use that pick though on a player. I don't think you'll take Kellaway with that pick.
No, which we were talking about earlier, weren't we? That it feels like that's a little bit too early at that 32, 33 range. Do you see anyone bidding on Kellaway? Or, I mean, my gut feel is we'll get him for a list spot rather than a pick.
Yeah, that's my gut feel as well. Do I think he'll get a bid? He's had a really good season.
It's been super consistent.
Yeah, Kellaway is one of those classic players where he just doesn't really have a weapon that hurts you specifically. He's just a really good player. So generally speaking, those guys don't garner bids just traditionally. I think the players, like there's guys that are kicking around in this draft like Max King and Harry Kyle and players like that are a little bit more athletic. I think they're more likely to get bids. They're a little bit higher than Kellaway even, but yeah, I just think he's probably in that sort of Thomas McGuan sort of zone a little bit with Collingwood, where he's a tidy player, tidy skills, but probably just doesn't hurt you with the footy quite enough.
I think we'll end up with him ultimately, but it'll be interesting to see where he goes. While I had you on, I wanted to just get your thoughts on our crop from last year. It was an unprecedented haul of talent that we were able to bring in. Did you like what the Tigers did with our drafting last year?
Oh, I thought you absolutely smashed it last year. I loved how bold the selections were. I think there wasn't really any conservatism laced in there at all. I think you just went for the guys that you really, really liked. And we again talked about this off stream a little bit, where Richmond are in a bit of a different situation to those other two basket case clubs down the bottom of the ladder in North Melbourne at West Coast. I know you're down there with us at the moment, but those clubs are sort of trying to build culture, whereas Richmond sort of still have that successful culture, at least partly there. There's enough maturity in the squad that you can bring in highly talented players that you can trust are going to have the education at Richmond to be able to thrive. And I think that's why you went for these high upside players like Taj Houghton and Sam Lawler and Luke Traynor and some of the other key position forwards that you took. You had Smiley there as well. So you didn't really play it safe, and Richmond are in a luxurious position to be able to do that. And I think in 3-4 years' time, when these guys all start to bed in and they start to hit their peak, then you can probably go for those more inside mids and players that hit the ground running, and everything will start to sort of gel at the same time, which is ultimately what you want.
I feel bad asking you this, but as a North Melbourne supporter, how did you feel about that pick swap?
Oh, it was good, yeah.
It was good, yeah.
No. I don't. I can't explain it. 12 months on. Apparently, we're trying to get back. We're heavily trying to get back into the draft this year again now. Right. So we want to get, I think, up into the early teens to try to probably get a key position player. Yeah. I also last year, I loved Finn O'Sullivan. I had him as the best player in the crop. He's going to be good. But yeah, he's going to be great. But even that, I know the North recruiting team absolutely loved Alex Tyroo, and I just think why not just take him? Just take him at 2.
Yeah, okay.
If you really like him, there's not
just take him.
There's not an agreed upon ranking that you have. You're allowed to reach for players if you like them. If you think that's your guy,
yeah, exactly.
He works for your team, just take him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tricky one. Another thing that I just wanted to mention with Richmond that I really, really liked, I listened to, is it Geishan, the Richmond?
Yeah, Ryan Geishan, yep.
Ryan Geishan, yeah. I listened to a podcast that they did, and he was talking about some of those key position forwards, and he talked about interviewing them at the Combine and them saying, I think it was Simsy and Harry Armstrong, and they both said that they loved playing alongside each other.
Yes.
And I think that was a nice touch in I suppose, building your picture as a recruiter and trying to put all those pieces together. And I think that's the small margins that the good teams are sort of looking for in recruiting at the moment, those things like that. I mean, we're not just picking the best players out. We're trying to actually build a team here, not build an all-star side. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it helps keep that culture alive as well. I think it's a good way for him to go about it. Jones Racing wants to know, have you got any information on Patrick Rechko, who we got for a trade for pick 99 this year? He was, I think he was a rookie for the Cats last year, then got delisted.
Yeah, I was actually a big fan of him. I mean, he's not obviously we're talking you traded pick 99 for him, so he's not a top end talent. But I really like what he did last year. He's an exceptional runner from an endurance perspective, so he's going to be able to provide something. There aren't going to be a lot of players that are going to be able to go with him, and I think if you can find a role for him, probably on a wing or at a specialist sort of half forward. His contest work is really good, and then he's got that running as well. Ball in hand, he's probably not the best kick, he's not the best player, but he doesn't need to be. He can just carry the ball for you and be a bit of a link man in the chain. He can be a bit of a defensive player as well. He's sort of coming to Richmond from Geelong like that. It screams one of those players that just ends up being a really, really handy role player who plays 150 games and is involved in a premiership ultimately at some point. It smells like that a little bit to me with a Pat Rechko. And I think you will find from that 2024 crop, because it was so strong, you'll find some of the guys that are fringe that either went late in the draft or didn't quite get drafted. Those types of players will get recycled, and I think some of them will do really well.
Yeah, it's fair call. I've said before, I can see him playing round 1 for us on the wing. I think it was a very, very specific needs pick in a position. We just lost Camden McIntosh. And I do get a lot of Camden McIntosh vibes from Rechko, just with his work rate and running up and down the ground. Not blessed with skill, but can get enough times to keep it moving our way. So that's probably as much as we can hope for. But, well, Dill, thank you so much for jumping on tonight, mate. I appreciate it. And thank you for your time earlier on today. So for those who haven't maybe seen it just yet, Dylan and I did do an interview with Sullivan Roby earlier on in the day, which is up on YouTube. And obviously Xavier Taylor was on for the start of this live tonight. So we want to thank both of them for jumping on as well and giving up their time. It was really good timing to have you on at the same time. We could get both of those guys on too. It was really, really good. So I appreciate you getting some questions lined up and for helping out with that.
No, it's brilliant, mate. It was a good opportunity for me to meet those guys as well. I usually just watch the games and don't really interact. So that was a lot of fun for me. And yeah, your channel, I've admired it from afar for a long time. So it was good to actually finally come on and meet you and talk to the fans and do this episode. So this is kind of the time I really come out of the cave at this time of year. So
That's it. This is it's your time to shine. And make sure, if you haven't already, folks, get around Dylan's YouTube channel. The link is in the description. I'm sure you're all already around anyway, but plenty more draft content to come, no doubt, before the big draft night. Are you doing a live on draft night, I imagine?
We are. We're doing a big livey on the True Footy YouTube channel. So jump over there. You'll be able to get links to that from my channel and from Jesse's True Footy. But we'll have a nice little panel on there, and it should be fun.
Very good. Sounds good, mate. Well, thank you again for jumping on. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Much appreciated. And thanks again to Sullivan Roby and Xavier Taylor for jumping on. Have a wonderful night, everybody. And I'm sure there'll be more draft stuff in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for it and have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. Good night.